Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Speedrun Insider. I'm your host, CJ. It's all good. We have another great episode for you this week. I have a terrific guest. This is really something I've had on the calendar. You know, when I started the podcast, I had a few names circled. I'm like, this is going to be a good one. This is one of those circles. He's the gentleman admin of the community formerly known as PSR, the ultimate marathon substitute for Speed Doxathon, the Poke Player East Coast extraordinaire himself, eddaket. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Oh, I'm living the dream 163-degree day at a time. It doesn't get old, right?
It doesn't.
So, I gave you, I kind of went over the top. Tell the people who you really are.
So as mentioned, my name is eddaket. I primarily Pokemon speedrunner. I've dabbled in a few other games here and there, but I've been around Pokemon speedrunning since around this time, actually, in 2013. So a little over 7 years now. And I've been able to do a bunch of different games, bunch of different generations of Pokemon. I've been lucky enough to be in quite a few marathons, both the general PSR marathon that we do every year. As CJ said, I was in the Speed Doxathon marathon a couple weeks ago. I've also been lucky enough to be at 4 different GDQs.
Wow.
With SGDQ 2020 being the most recent one, closing that out with Pokemon Shield. So definitely been around for a while, and definitely excited to be here.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I've got a lot of things to ask you. I really want to start right away. I want to lay the groundwork for the people. How did you discover speedrunning? What was your first step?
Yeah, so I actually discovered speedrunning far earlier than I actually started doing it myself, which sounds crazy given that I said I started speedrunning in 2013. But I found Speed Demo's archive. I don't remember exactly how, but I remember finding it in 2007, 2008.
Wow.
Um, and a lot of the games that I played as a kid, I would just look up and check out Pokemon, different Final Fantasy games. I really liked the Fable game from the Xbox, and I would just sort of check them out and see how fast those games could be beaten. But I didn't really do much with it. And then when I graduated college in 2013, I sort of I found AGDQ that year. Um, Watched Pokemon, absolutely loved it. And eventually, once I graduated college, I worked at school, so I didn't have a job because I was no longer a student, so I couldn't be employed.
Right.
Um, and I basically spent the month researching Pokemon speedrunning, researching Twitch, ended up starting up, the stream just like everyone else, and just started going from there.
That's so interesting that you said Fable. We did a video on Fable a long time ago, and
Yeah.
I know the run that you're talking about. So it's such a small world.
Yeah, it's one of those games we'll talk about obviously the games that I've done. It's one of those games that's always been on my mind of this would be so fun for me to try and run. But given how much time and effort I've put into things like Pokemon,
Mm-hmm.
going to a game that's a lot more more execution based than more of that sort of preparation routing based games is honestly a big step. It's not like I'm bad at video games, but
Right.
like a lot of those sort of execution based games are just really intimidating for me to go and learn. So I never
Right.
really got around to it.
I guess I've never thought about that. It's like it is a step.
Mhm.
It is definitely a step. I've never thought about it. That's actually really interesting. It's an interesting perspective.
Yeah, I always it's kind of funny because I mean, like I said, I've done 4 different GDQs, 3 of them for Pokemon. And it's hard to make a Pokemon run seem impressive in my opinion because a lot of the impressive stuff is the preparation, the route, especially for marathons. How do I make this route marathon safe? Everyone's like, "Oh, Pokemon speedruns are all RNG and you can't, it's just who got the luckiest is the winner." And it's that's not really how it is. It's a lot about that preparation. And the run itself, you have to execute well, but a lot of the execution things that you're seeing aren't flashy. The flashy stuff is the routing, which doesn't really come across in something like a marathon run. So a good Pokemon Marathon Run has to be more on the entertaining side with, like, the commentary and, you know, explaining things, but not explaining it too much. Where with a game like, a Mario 64 or something like that, like, the gameplay itself is just inherently entertaining. So, it's definitely a different style of game, a different style of speedrun.
Yeah, you're saying that about Pokemon, that it's the preparation that goes into it that's the hard part, the intense part, the impressive part. You're saying it's the work that you do ahead of time. That's something that I take from me from sports. Is it's the work you do on Monday that wins you the game on Friday, right?
Right.
It's not the person that can jump up 10 feet in the air and bend backwards and catch the ball. It's good tackling, it's good fundamentals, it's knowing the game, it's knowing what to do when things happen so you're not on the field like a jerk, not doing
Yeah,
what you're supposed to do. So it's all preparation. A lot of it is preparation, and that's the stuff that nobody sees. People see the highlight reel, but
right.
they never see all the preparation and the routing and stuff that goes into it.
Yeah, and, like, I definitely don't wanna minimize, like, the execution and stuff, especially lately, like, Pokemon runs at a top level are very execution based. It's just more things like, menu optimizations, small movement things, like, the it's not necessarily like, you know, "Oh, that movement was super flashy," or, like, "That trick is so hard." It's more just, like, the practice and the optimization and things like that, but the idea of, like, the preparation and stuff being the sort of impressive part, I don't know how it is in other communities. Like I said, I've been around Pokemon speedrunning for such a long time, but not really involved in a lot of other communities.
Mhm.
But whenever a milestone gets met, it almost feels more like a community achievement than just like a personal runner achievement. Like, yeah, this person is the one who broke that minute barrier, but it's almost like the community is the one that achieved it.
Right. Well, there's definitely this tends to be the thing in games that have like one or two people that are hot, like high level runners. It
Mhm.
definitely is channeled through one or two people, because if you find a strat or you work on a route or you do something, it's to everyone's benefit, but it really is helping the community drive that time down through that one person.
Mhm.
When we talk with Banjo, that's how Banjo felt. Was like, oh yeah, well it takes, one person was really good at the game, but it was the sum total of, hundreds of hours of people's lives to contribute to it. So yeah, it's like it's really the sum total of everyone's efforts. So I definitely get what you're saying. There are some games where it's like, oh, this person's just a god. This
Right.
person's just like, wow, when they came around and did that, whoa boy, oh no, watch
Yeah.
out. All right. So what was your first Pokemon game? So you said you started in 2013. Did you start with Pokemon?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So I started with Pokemon Red. I was doing the any percent glitchless category.
Hmm.
At the time, there were runners of other games, but there was like one or two runners of like the later gen games. It really wasn't like a big full-fledged community like it is now. A lot of people started, I mean, this is still true to today, but a lot of people started with Generation 1, specifically Pokemon Red. And yeah, so I did like the normal any percent glitchless category, around a 2-hour run. I did that for a couple months. I ended up getting a job about a month and a half after picking up speedrunning,
Hmm.
and that severely cut into the amount of time I had. Like, it's only a 2-hour run, which I say only a 2-hour run. A lot of people will see a run over an hour 30 and are like, "That's not a speed run." But, uh, for Pokemon, it's a relatively short run. So, I ended up not really having a lot of time, so I sort of stopped doing runs, and eventually picked up Pokemon Blue, No Save Corruption. At the time, it was like a single segment glitched run, and, it was a fun race category we could do. There were, a bunch of us in the community, like Shenanigans, the Bomb Stew, a few other people who aren't really around anymore. But we would do races and stuff. And then eventually I was able to find the time to do longer runs again, but I didn't really want to leave the glitched world. So I eventually started doing the catch 'em all category, which has basically been like a foundation of what I've been as a Pokemon runner
Hmm.
since. It was the first category I got like a real world record in. It was something I basically always fall back to. I actually there was a new catch 'em all route that was found or created, I should say, maybe a week ago. And so I've been diving back into that, and I mostly have it right now because the route is new and people haven't really jumped onto it yet. But
Hmm.
like last night, I got the world record back in it for the first time in 5 years, and so it was like a really, it's like going back to your roots kind of thing. Because like after Catch 'em All, I eventually jumped into the later gen games like Omega Ruby. And then I've been involved in like the Let's Go release, the Sword and Shield release, and really been a part of creating those games as speed games within the community.
Hmm. That's interesting. So you got to basically go home in a way. You got to go back to your roots with the catch 'em all category. Just for the benefit of people listening who may not understand all these categories,
Mhm.
because they do kind of sound vaguely Pokemon-y.
Yes.
Um, so can you explain what catch 'em all is as a category, part one, and part two? What was the change that they created to make it go faster?
Yeah, absolutely. So, there were sort of all right, so I'll start with just Catch 'em all. So Catch 'em all as a category, Pokemon never really has like 100% category. Like a lot of games, like a Zelda game has any percent, 100%. Some games have like a low percent. Pokemon doesn't really have that because there's no percent counter, and when you're playing the game normally, just by the nature of how Pokemon has ever been, you can't catch all of the Pokemon. Like there are version exclusives, there are Pokemon that just are not obtainable. Generation 1 is a very good game for Pokemon glitches,
Hmm.
uh, to where you can actually, through the use of glitches, catch every Pokemon that's available. So catch 'em all, you could see as a catch 151 Pokemon, complete Pokedex, whatever you want to call it. The idea is that you catch every Pokemon in the game using whatever glitches are necessary. And I think that sort of bleeds well into sort of the second part of that question. Catch 'em all has undergone a couple of changes, both route wise and rule wise, over the lifespan of the category. The initial form of the category looked one way and eventually devolved into through like some really heavy glitch routing, essentially a boring run where you could set up a glitch in such a way that you're essentially buying Pokemon from a Pokemart. Like that's how fast it is.
Okay.
Um yeah, so traditionally in order to catch a Pokemon, you get an encounter, throw your Master Ball, whatever you want to throw at it. It takes I don't know the exact number. I think it's like 30 seconds. Maybe it's anywhere between like 20 and 30 seconds. And we were finding glitches that would enable us to catch a Pokemon like every 50 seconds. So it's longer than it takes to get it normally, but you remove the random chance. So like it starts to become worth it when you hit the 50-second mark. Then we found a way to do it in 40 seconds. Then we found a way to do it in 20 seconds. And then eventually, I think the current version of that route catches a Pokemon every 12 seconds. So it's completely broken. So, eventually the community was like, "This isn't fun, this is stupid, let's change the rules." And so we banned, it's essentially what we call a mass farming glitch. So we banned mass farming glitches, and the route was fun again. It was no longer a 30-minute run, it was now over 2 hours again, and then it got under 2 hours and all that kinda stuff, and eventually it sort of stagnated around the hour 40 mark for a while. And then last month, two of the biggest glitch hunters, not necessarily runners in the community. In fact, I don't know if either of them have ever done an actual run. Maybe a while ago. but mostly glitch hunters and RNG manipulation finders, GIFX and StringFlow basically masterminded a big reroute of Catch 'em All, which I won't go into too many details, but essentially there is a glitch that we can use to speed up certain like jingles in the game. Um,
Okay.
and it was something that we could use, but it could only be used for a limited amount of time and at very specific times. So we had to, you would essentially use that glitch to evolve as many Pokemon as you can in the short period of time that you have the glitch available. But because of that, you had to spread out those long evolutions over the course of the run. But with this, a new glitch was sort of, I think it's been known for a while, but it was like actually reworked into the run to where we can basically make that state happen at will. So whenever we need it, we can do it. So we bring all of those like that optimization of having to go from like this area to that area, catch these specific Pokemon, but don't catch them at the same time we're catching these other ones. Like none of that matters anymore. We can just catch everything and then evolve everything at the end.
Hmm.
So it sort of enables us to rework the route to where, it's we do what is more optimal, like from area to area, instead of worrying about what we're catching in what places.
Okay.
And then the other part that was really big is RNG manipulation. So RNG manipulation in Generation 1 Pokemon has been around for a while, but in order to make really good manipulations, you need to have it be botted. Basically, program will brute force and find the manips that work the best. And that has been a really tough thing for the community because in general, only a couple of people really know how to do that. With StringFlow, one of the routers I mentioned being one of them. And he eventually took his focus toward this catch 'em all category and came up with some really, really good manips for the entire run. There's like, I don't know an exact number. There's probably like 30 to 40 of them. And they're all
Hmm.
really good. And some of them are like, again, I don't want to get into too many details. I've probably gone a bit too far anyways, but like a lot of them are very specific and very crucial to making the route work the way it does. So it was like those sort of two things combined. The route's only been out for like a week, maybe week and a half, and no one's really grinded it yet, but the record's already been beaten by close to a minute. And it's looking like it'll go down by several more over the next maybe month or two.
That's really interesting. I mean, it's one of these things, right, where it's like, man, there's not a lot of game left in your game.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's really cool to see. I like that kind of stuff. Like I like, oh hey, this is a category we can do super quickly because it's borked. It's like
Right.
that's really cool to see. That's like the essence of speedrunning. But it's kind of like, I wish there was a way you could have a legitimate catch 'em all category, you know? Like a legitimate, like, all right, go west, young man, grow up with the country, catch all 150 so on Pokemon, you know? I wish there was a way you could really have that and have it be kind of fulfilling and rewarding, but alas, they want you to buy 2 games or trade with your friends or something to that effect.
Yeah. I
So,
mean,
good.
I was just gonna say there is it's more of a category extension than like a main category, but we do have some of the games have a category that is essentially that, but it's not really catch them all. It's like catch all that you can.
It's
So for generation 1, the number is 124. So like we have a category that's 124 Pokemon. And so it is that. It does sort of feel like incomplete because like you get to the end and it's like, when you beat a Pokemon game, the Professor Oak validates your Pokedex and he's like, make sure you trade with your friends to get more Pokemon. And it's like, I know, but I'm done. I did all I can.
Imagine like there's a category out there that's like you have to get the other 25 from trading with yourself.
Yeah.
So you're just like
Yep.
menuing on another device. It's like
Yep.
So we were talking about Pokemon Red earlier, and how that was your first speed game, and Catch 'Em All was your first world record.
Mhm.
Did things kind of click for you? Did you become like a world record magnet? Did you start getting like gold medals and everything that you touched? Was it more slow to come to you? Like, what was your kind of ascension up the leaderboards like?
Um, yeah, it was definitely an interesting sort of experience. I've never been like a especially in generation 1. I should clarify by saying generation 1. I've never really been like the top of the leaderboard in gen 1. I think the closest I ever got was the world record was a so we used to do in-game time for glitchless. So it was only down to the minute, it wasn't seconds. So the world record was a tied world record between 4 different runners at an hour 54, and I got myself an hour 56. So I was, like, tied for 3rd, but there was probably, like, I don't know, a dozen people ahead of me. And eventually the times ended up going down, I sort of left the category, whatever, and we had it wasn't a cheater, like, we didn't have an actual cheating issue, but we had an issue that a lot of people thought should have us reevaluate our stance when it came to things like emulators. So, eventually may not have been the best decision, but eventually the community came to a decision to basically have emulators are allowed, but not for world record. Like, you can't claim world record if you used an emulator to get your time.
Okay.
Which is kind of a weird thing because really, world record is just a title. Like, you still have the fastest time, but whatever, I'm not gonna
Hmm.
get into that. So, what that did in turn was take the record in Pokemon Red from being a 150 back to a 154. And I knew I was capable of a 156, and now the route had gotten better, so I got myself the console set up and everything and tried to go for the record. um, it wouldn't have meant a ton just because, like, there already were times faster, but it would have been cool to have the title for once.
Yeah.
I never quite got there. I got to a 155, and then the record ended up getting beaten down to, like, a 151 and then a 150 again, so it was like, "Alright, now it's out of reach." Um, but, like, that sort of gave me my first, like, taste of it almost. And then I think it was a bit later was when like, a bit later that year was when I got my first Catch 'Em All record. Like, it sorta gave me a bit of a drive to say, like, you know, "I didn't quite get there in Glitchless, but I think I can do it in Catch 'Em All," and so I just sorta went for it. And, like, I loved the Glitch community as well. Like, it was a really good group of guys, and it just was easy for me to do runs and grind for a category like that. But yeah, that was sort of like my first
Yeah.
sort of foray into it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so interesting, like, because something else like circumstantially happened. It's like
Mhm.
suddenly it's like right back in your lap, right? It's like,
Right.
oh, I could get this. Like, this is doable.
Yeah.
I totally hear what you're saying. It's like, you just kind of you just want it to have it, to say that you had it, but you don't need it, right?
Right.
I think
Yeah,
a
and
lot of, oh, go ahead.
oh, no, you say your thing first, mine's a little bit off topic.
Right. I think a lot of people, especially people that are newer, that are maybe they found it a different way, maybe they found speedrunning a certain way, maybe they have different goals that are different than like mine or whatever. That's totally possible. But I feel like when I started, a lot of people didn't care about having the world record. Like in
Mhm.
almost any game, there were a few people that were in kind of in line, so to speak. So it was like it was important to them because they were like on the cutting edge of being competitive. But it's like it sounds so weird to say like, "Oh, well, I started running this game and my goal the day that I started was to have the world record." Like I had never met anyone like that.
Mhm.
But if you talk to people that are getting in today, that's what's a lot of them, that's kind of what's important to them.
Yeah.
That's been my experience. And maybe it's only a few people. Nobody was like that when I started. Nobody in 2017, 2018 was like that. It wasn't really oriented that way. And again, I'm newer, but
Right. Yeah, and like that definitely wasn't the mindset I had by any means at the start either. Like it was very much like just try to do my best. And the whole thing with like the emulators being banned and now the console record is back up to like a level I was capable of. It was sort of like a, well, while it's here, why don't I try to go for it kind of thing. Um, but I think it's an interesting sort of idea where speedrunning is obviously like my biggest hobby. But before speedrunning, I spent probably the last 6 years doing, I say competitive, but I don't mean competitive in the respect of like actually going to competitions, more just like the general online community leaderboard stuff um within the rhythm game community, so like Guitar Hero and Rock Band.
okay.
Um and I basically joined that community as a way to competitively play a single player game. Was essentially what
Right.
it was. It was
Right.
like,
Yeah.
here's a way for me to play by myself and take my scores and compare it with others. And if I'm the best, that's awesome. If I'm not the best, I can try to do better. And eventually, like, that sort of scene died. It's still kind of alive today. But like the scene as it was back then sort of died, and I picked up speedrunning, and it was very much the same kind of motivation. It's like, here's a single player game I'm playing as fast as I can to compare against other people. And if I'm the best, cool. If I'm not, that means I can do better. And even if I am the best, I might still be able to do better. So it's like, it's more of a comparison against others to know what's possible, not necessarily because I need to be the best.
Yeah. I always got a kick out of like, all right, how fast can I run a 40-yard dash? How
Mhm.
fast can I do a mile? And then like, oh, I could do that way faster and get my time down. And then my school at least, they would put the results up on a piece of paper. And everyone in your class would be on this piece of paper with your times.
Mhm.
And I think, to be fair, not to out my gym teachers as being, jerks or whatever, I think that it was an opt-in. So if you wanted to opt out of it, you could.
Okay.
For the people that ran like a 9-minute mile. But then I'd look at it and I'm like, damn, I knew that I was not the first person off the blacktop, but this is ridiculous.
Right.
Like, I gotta do better. I gotta cut corners. And that's the same thing. And I think I'm hearing that from you. I think we're a lot alike in that way, because that was the same thing for me. I was like, well, I just want to kind of do my own thing and then see where I stack up against everybody else. And I
Yep.
was the same way with speedrunning.
Yeah, exactly. And like that was how I picked up the game. Like I distinctly remember, I don't think there's any footage of this, thank God. But I distinctly remember treating every stream, cuz I didn't really find speedrunning on Twitch. I found speedrunning through AGDQ.
Mm.
So, and like I started streaming with only that in mind. Like I didn't find other speedrunners on Twitch first. So, I treated every run like a marathon run. And I also, because I didn't find the community or anything, I like made my own route for the game. So it ended up being me with this really bad route from somebody who doesn't know Pokemon, like at least not in a speedrunning sense, really bad route, doing essentially marathon style commentary, gonna be cringy as all hell. And like I finished my first run, I got like a 220 in red. I'm like, I think that's pretty good. I look at the leaderboard, it's like 154. I'm like, what? That's a half an hour faster. How is that possible?
It's so funny that you're kind of dunking on yourself here. I'm not going to stop you. I think it's hilarious. But so many people, I think that that's something that gets lost. If you watch somebody really going at attempts, the
Mhm.
commentary is not terrific, right? If you're watching a top level, and this is for any speed game, if you're watching a top level runner going for record, it gets quiet, it gets intense. There's a different kind of atmosphere.
Right.
I very much enjoy, and I've seen this recently, people will sometimes do marathon style commentary for your next run.
Okay.
I think that's a great idea because that gets so many new people involved. You know, they get so many new people interested in the game. That's like a really great way to explain the speedrun because if you think about it, when you're doing attempts, you never really explain what you're doing.
Right.
And all the little things that you would normally mention in a marathon run, you know, and then what happens, right? Your chat's like, what did you just do? What did he do? What did that? How did you do that? And then you're explaining something you did like 2 minutes ago, right?
Right.
So I think that's a really cool thing. I think it's cool that that's the way that you started. I think that's really interesting and a really good way to get new people. And obviously, I'm going to put you on blast here a little bit. It obviously worked because you are a partnered streamer with over 11,000 followers.
Yeah, like it was definitely like a slower start. Like I think I hit 2,000 followers in 2017, so like after 4 years, but yeah, like the amount of people and I said it before, I'm very lucky that I was able to get on the GDQ stage even once, let alone the 4 times I did, but I have a lot of people that just like, "Oh, I found you from like your GDQ run and like it was super informative. I want to pick up the game." And like that's my goal with that kind of stuff. Like I think we touched on it in the beginning, you know, execution based games are flashy by nature. You have to make a Pokemon game or like that style of game flashy through the run somehow. And like that's something I really like strive to do. And yeah, like you definitely don't get it every stream. Like if I had to explain to people the stats I'm looking for on my Mudkip every time I reset in Omega Ruby, I'd probably go crazy because like every 5 minutes I look at my stats, I'm like, well, that one had bad defense, and then like start again. And it's like now I'm talking to mom. It's like I'm not gonna explain what I'm doing every single time.
Sure.
But like that's the kind of stuff that gets people into the games. And like who knows if the next person who is gonna come up with the next big strat tuned into your stream or tuned into a run and got bored because like you're in focus mode or you know something like that. Like I guess I don't really know where I was going with that, but like the idea is basically, you know,
Yeah. Well,
like
you're
those
not.
kind of runs are very valuable.
Yeah. Well, you're not really. I mean, it sounds a little hyperbolic, maybe, but I'm here to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, he's not wrong. I mean, so often in history, the way that the newer generation of runners started running is by watching people stream. So it's like, okay, yeah, they got into speedrunning because they watched Siglemic or they watched Narcissa Wright. Then it's like, oh, well, I played you know, you said Fable, I'll play Fable. This is a great example to kind of tie this whole thing up. The people that were running it at the time, the world record holder was a guy named KJ Freshley, who's a really chill guy. And he got a world record in his, or was it Giant Steps? One of those two. And in the chat of that stream, in the world record VOD, the chat is Clean Sarah and I'm gonna forget your name, I'm sorry. But 2 people that would go on to be like the future world record holders were in that chat and had never done a run before.
That's crazy.
And it happens so often that people like just you don't think about it because it's like, you know, you are inspiring. I mean, you as a person, you specifically, I'm talking to you now. You have a very chill stream. I think it's very kind of laid back. I think you are an inspiring person because you kind of have a stream that I think is a success, and you're not. It's not super toxic. It's not super angry. And it's like, yeah, you can be a successful streamer, you can be a successful speedrunner and not be, you know, all the time.
Right.
Yeah. Pivoting a little bit.
Okay.
We talked a little bit about your GDQ runs. The run that I know you for, I watched you do SGDQ 2020. You closed out the marathon.
Right.
And I didn't really watch SGDQ because I was super busy, but I kind of tuned in at the end because everyone wants to watch the end. How much money are they going to raise? Are they going to hit 2 million? Are they going to do this? Are they going to do that? And you closed the marathon, right? That was...
Yep.
Okay. Just checking, make sure I'm not talking about someone else.
No, you're right.
And it was a really good run. It was Sword and Shield was the run.
Yeah, it was the Pokemon Shield. We had an incentive. It ended up being a milestone incentive. So if they hit $2 million, we would do the new Isle of Armor DLC that had come out a couple months earlier.
Mhm.
And that's a speed run in its own right. You can do it from new game, and it takes about an hour and a half. The actual Isle of Armor content adds about an hour to the run. So the idea was, as the finale, you have this sort of like ongoing running incentive that we're trying to hit this goal, and like up to the last minute, like it didn't end up taking this long, but up to the last minute, this goal could have been met. And
Mm.
so that was something I definitely wanted to bring to them. And then they accepted it, and so yeah, like we were able to extend the run by about an hour. It was it was a really fun run. It was a really cool experience. It was a little bittersweet just because, it was like amazing that Pokemon was the finale. I was the one chosen to do the run, but it was also the first main GDQ event that was not in person.
Yeah.
And anyone who's been to a GDQ in person knows like what the finale is like. So it was still a very big moment, and one I'm definitely proud of. But it was a little bit bittersweet just because, it was like the first one that wasn't in person like that.
Well, it's like it's to kind of quote something you said earlier. Instead of it being like you're a rock star on stage, which is what the finale of GDQ feels like for if you're in the audience or on stage, I'm sure it feels like you're at a rock concert.
Mhm.
And then it kind of you're at home, with your loafers on. That kind of feels like you're playing like Guitar Hero, right? It's like the
Right.
juxtaposition. It's like it's cool for sure. I mean, that was a really good run, and it was the end of GDQ, and there is so much money, which was like, what the why? How the hell are they going to raise so much money on an online only event? But they did it,
Yep.
and I thought it was a really good way to end the marathon. The armor stuff is interesting. I had never seen it before.
Mhm.
But then you get the bonus content. It's like, well, I gotta watch this now too. So I saw that, and we had a problem where someone dropped out, and we had I was planning Speed Doxathon. We had someone drop out, and we had a 3.5 hour hold. And this is a funny story. I don't know if you know this or not, but I kind of like beside myself. I said, I need a replacement. I need a replacement. I don't know who else to ask. I've called in all my favors. I don't have anyone else that can do this time slot. So I went to my friend Ty Kevin, who
Mhm.
was on this show at one point a long time ago. He was episode number 3, I believe. Ty Kevin, great guy. I have a running
Mhm.
gag where I send him kitchen appliances. As part of his wedding gift, I had sent him a blender, and at GDQ, he informed me that he had never received a blender from me. So, but when he got home from GDQ that year, there was a blender on his doorstep. I made sure that there was a blender. I overnighted one to his house.
That's
Um,
fantastic.
and so I said, Ty Kevin, I need a Pokemon speedrunner. I will buy you an air fryer if you find someone to fill the slot. So he said, how long is the slot? I said 3.5 hours. So I'm like, I'm going to get somebody doing like a category extension or something. It kind of worked. I'm like, I'm going to get like last place on the leaderboard. I don't care. He could take 4 hours to do red glitchless, and I'd pay him for the night.
Mhm.
And he's like, etiquette's good. I'm like, what, the guy that just closed GDQ? He's going to fill in? And he was like, yeah, he's a good guy. I was like foaming at the mouth. I went to Amazon immediately. I had not seriously thought I was gonna buy him an air fryer. I
Right.
bought him an air fryer on the spot. I dropped what I was doing. I went on my phone. I bought an air fryer right then and there. So, Ty Kevin, I hope you're enjoying your air fryer, buddy. And also, thank you very much for filling in for Speed Doxathon. That was you saved me so much stress, and I actually got to host your run, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah, no, Speed Doxathon was great. It was, I got to do Pokemon Let's Go, so that's the run I did at SGDQ 19, and I yeah, so Let's Go is probably like, if there's a game I'm known for today, it's Let's Go,
Hmm.
both for GDQ reasons and for leaderboard reasons. But I basically hadn't played Let's Go in a little while before, accepting the Speed Docs marathon. And
Hmm.
I I put in some practice and stuff, and the run that I did on the marathon is, like, execution slash time wise, one of my favorite runs, because I took a run that is very so Let's Go is one of my favorite Pokemon runs because of the way that it's structured. You never have the same run twice. The run revolves around catching 50 Pokemon, because that's one of the requirements to beat one of the gyms. And because of that catch requirement, it's very easy to fall behind if you don't get the right catches, if your catches don't cooperate and stuff like that. So your typical no reset style, marathon style run isn't going to be an amazing time. You can get pretty consistent at it, but you're not going to have amazing times like for a leaderboard standing, for example.
Hmm.
The run that I put on for Speed Doxathon was within 8 minutes of my PB and would have put me, I think, something like fifth on the leaderboard. It was a very well executed run, especially for a marathon route and marathon run in general. Just like the nature of a marathon run, you're gonna play differently. So like I was really, really happy with how that run ended up turning out, both from being able to participate and raise money, but also like the quality of the run was really good to me.
Well, I gotta say, hearing you say that makes me love the run even more. If it was the worst run on Earth, I still would have loved it. But now hearing you say how much you loved it, I'm saying, well, that's what the quality that you get at Speed Doxathon, ladies and gentlemen. I don't need to sell it; it's already over. But it's something I learned a lot from running a marathon,
Mhm.
and it was really because as a runner, it's so you just show up. It's like
Right.
you're the talent on like a show, and you just show up. It's like, hey, I'm here for my run. All right, let's get you set up, get you in the makeup chair. All right, I'm done with my run now. I'm gonna go get sloppy drunk or whatever. And it's weird because it's like it's that, but you're on the other side where 70 people are like, "Hey, I'm here for my run. What do you want me to do?" It's like, "All right, you go there, and you go away. You're not on till tomorrow." Or, "Okay,
Right.
where's so and so? So and so went to bed. Okay, he's not in the marathon anymore." Okay, and doing that for 4 days was a lot of plate spinning. It was very interesting. Would love to do it again. Would love to have you again.
Mhm.
Because and maybe I'll let you put in a game that you've practiced more recently. I won't make you submit a game that you're a year out of practice on. But actually, according to you, that's how you get the best run. So
Yeah.
don't stop playing Sword for a year or Shield for a year, and then at Speed Doxathon 2021, just de-rest it the week before.
All right. Sounds like a plan.
All right, I think something that I wanted to ask you. Let's go back a little bit. So you went from speedrunning Pokemon games, and then you eventually worked your way up the rank and file as one of the admins of the Pokemon speedrunning community. How did that happen?
Yeah, so back in like 2015 or so, when everyone was moving from their more homegrown solutions to speedrun.com, with that came a more structured like moderator system. So eventually became a moderator of Pokemon Red, and then eventually the other games that I ran as well. So I was always sort of, at least since things like moderating games was a thing, always sort of involved in that aspect within PSR.
Hmm.
And then eventually last year, the admin team wanted to expand a bit. It was just 3 people, and they wanted to expand for various reasons. We don't have to get into, but one of one of the reasons was they basically wanted people that were representative of areas of the Pokemon community that they weren't representative of. So, for example, you had in the admin team, you had a lot of experience with like the generation 4 and 5 runs, but not really like the early gens and not really the late gens. So they, expanded the team, added myself and Pokeguy, great generation 1 through 3 runner. And
Hmm.
yeah, it basically was more of a just general experience. Was always involved with the community. I think since joining the community really back in like 2013, I've never taken like an extended break. So I've always been around. A lot of people knew me either from stream or from just the Discord, the games and stuff like that. So it sort of became I mean, I don't want to speak for the others, but the way it was described to me is it was sort of like a natural pick.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, that was back last year around August, I think. 'Cause I think it was right after the PSR marathon that we do every August. And I've held that role until fairly recently.
Yeah. Well, we don't need to go into that, but
Right.
well, we'll just say so. It doesn't sound like you got kicked out.
Right, yeah.
The decision was made to decentralize, and then every community have its own little piece of the world, which us over in the Pokemon Snap community not only think is a interesting and good decision, one that we've been doing for a long time. So definitely you won't find any disagreements there, and whatever the decision was, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Speaking of managing large communities or being at the top of large communities, I'm interested to get your kind of opinion on this. We both went through something similar, and we're not going to get into the specifics of it, but I had my own situations, I guess plural, and you had a situation, at least in this past year,
Mhm.
where there was some allegations were made against individuals, one in your community, one in mine,
Mhm.
and how we were talking before the show, and I guess I'm just interested. What was that process like for you? Because obviously, PSR was and forever will be and is a much larger community to manage than what I was managing. I was only managing like 100 or 200 people. I'm interested to hear what your perspective on like managing it was and how chaotic it was, and just kind of trade scars here a little bit because it's not easy. Spoiler alert, if people think it's easy, it's not easy.
Yeah, it was definitely an experience. One that obviously wish didn't happen, but was glad I was able to go through just because like I know I learned a lot from it.
Hmm.
Looking back, there are definitely things that shouldn't be done, things that probably should be done instead, stuff like that. Hopefully it never happens again, but if it does happen again and I'm in a position to help mitigate the situation, I like to think that I would do better a second time. I'll start with saying that. With that said, the situation was very tough to handle. PSR by its nature has been, and it's absolutely a fault, and one of the reasons why the new community split I think is a really good thing. Very need to know-y kind of thing. You know, a lot of decisions are made higher up and then trickle down and that kind of thing. And it's not always clear why a decision was made that it was. And this is true of like general leaderboard processes or whatever. And so this was very much a situation like that where, we needed to say something. And so we said something because we couldn't just ignore it. Like we weren't ignoring it by any means. Like we were doing our part at an admin level.
Hmm.
But if someone just disappears and no one is told about it, then it becomes a whole dumpster fire situation.
Yes.
We have to tell people, But we also don't wanna go into specifics, because as soon as you start going into specifics, it starts to unravel. There's a lot of, like, privacy concerns involved here. So, we had a general statement of, "This is what's happening, just as an FYI, not really looking to discuss it, just to let you guys know this is what's happening. Please respect the privacy of everyone involved, because this is very sensitive stuff, and, leave it at that." Almost immediately, the Discord turns into, "What happened? Why is this happening? What is this ping about? Why are we doing this? What's the evidence? Blah blah blah." And so, like, it essentially turned into everything we didn't want to happen
Right.
immediately.
Hmm.
And I have to say, the PSR structure before had, like, an admin level, a Discord moderator level, and then there were, like, um, leaderboard mods and other people of prominence, within the community. The Discord mods and, like, the leaderboards mods did a fairly good job of just, like, I don't wanna say handling the situation, because that wasn't really their job, but they definitely did a good job of, like, reminding people about, keeping everyone's privacy intact. And, like, we eventually put on slow mode and stuff, and, like, that night, the Discord was almost unbearable to read.
Yeah. I was there for part of it. I was a leaderboard mod at the time,
Mhm,
and so I was like, I'm telling you, I was like listening to this and I'm reading this, and I had just seen this happen in another Discord a few days before. Not my own, but a different community. And it gets out of control really quick. And like you said, it was almost unbearable to watch and to read. If I could
mhm.
sum up what I saw, and then you can tell me if this is what you observed, I'd be curious. But it always boils down to there's probably like you could count them on one hand. There's people in there that are just stirring shit up and they don't actually care probably, and that they are just giving the hottest of takes, right?
Mhm.
And it's like we should hire a private investigator to investigate these facts, and we should. It's like no, you really shouldn't. This is a bit. And then what ends up happening is that people start getting at each other's throats, and they never realize that they agree with each other.
Yeah, absolutely. There's always, and I'm gonna say this meaning no disrespect, because I think a lot of these people may actually, have better answers. Like, obviously, the way everything went down wasn't handled the best.
Mm,
I'll be the first to admit it. So there absolutely are ideas that we could take, from that conversation if we ever looked back at it. Maybe we should, maybe we shouldn't. I don't know. Either way, there's always the group of people that know what to do better than you do.
yes, yes.
There's always the people, like you said, that are making, like, more of the outrageous suggestions, like hire private investigator, what have you. And then, yeah, there's the group of people that essentially argue to argue. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why the community split like we have it is going to prove to be a good thing. I think it already has seen a lot of positives. I know a lot of people are definitely skeptical, but, like, just fostering a different sort of sense of community, I think, is gonna be really important, because, like, there definitely are a lot of people who, in some ways good, in some ways bad, will always try to point out what's wrong with your opinion. Sometimes it's
Yes.
good. Sometimes it's good in that, it's like, "Oh, this is something I didn't consider." But sometimes it's like disagreeing to disagree.
You're being very kind to these people, by the way. You're being very kind. You're being very judicious.
Yeah, because I honestly, like, I'm not really the one to say who's wrong and right. And I don't wanna pretend like I know everything, I clearly don't. But, like, from an outsider perspective in some of those conversations, it's definitely, people who are arguing to argue, and it doesn't really help the conversation get anywhere except to a more toxic place. Um,
Yeah.
and it's not the only time it's happened in PSR. It probably won't be the last time it happens, but I think it's something that, you know, is much better if it's avoided, in my
Hmm.
opinion.
Hmm. No, for sure. I will say that this is not easy. It's not
Mhm.
easy. Anyone out there that thinks they know exactly what to do, don't you have the benefit of not having to worry about what everybody else thinks about that? You're
Right.
making a decision, for a bunch of other people. And I think you guys did a pretty good job. I mean, you guys wrangled it in really quick. The slow mode was on for like a day,
Right.
and there were always multiple people typing. But it calmed down, and then it was fine, right?
Yep.
And I think that's it. Could it have been handled better? Yes. You have the benefit of knowing everything that you know now. Just like I have the benefit of knowing everything that I know now, and you also have the benefit of seeing the problem through to a resolution,
Right.
right? So, but at the time that you were making these, that you and the other people involved, because it wasn't just you, at
Yeah.
the time that these decisions were being made, I think that you guys handled it fairly well. I saw what happens when it isn't handled fairly well in its anarchy and its
Yeah.
and its people joining just to scream at you, and it's brutal. And the thing that I really want to get across to everybody who doesn't understand the position that we were in, because and again, me to a much lesser extent,
Right.
who are we to be making these decisions anyway? I
Yeah.
looked at them in the mirror and said, okay, my moderators are a long haul trucker, a pizza delivery boy, a teacher. I work at a dealership, and
Mhm.
someone. Okay, he works the counter at the Kroger. This person is a customer service person for a fungus company. It's like, why are we capable or in charge of investigating serious cases of misconduct? We're not at all.
Right.
But it's like all our only qualifications is that we are vaguely responsible. Most of us are adults, and we happen to be fairly passionate about a video game that we played a long time ago. Am
Yeah.
I like, it's just like the thing that unites everybody is a very tenuous thread. It's not something that you should tightrope walk on. And, to be thrown stones at from below, it's like, man, you have no idea. The view's
Right.
way different from up here.
Yeah, and, like, that's I sort of joked about this before when we were talking before we started recording, but the idea that has popped into my head with this, which sounds ridiculous because at the end of the day, like, I'll use PSR as an example. PSR is a group of, like, 1,500 people who play a video game. So it sounds absolutely ridiculous, but, like, it's almost like with a community that size, having something to the effect of, like, an HR department is worthwhile
Yeah.
because now you at least have a group of people who sole job within the community is to handle stuff like this. And like I said, obviously I hope this never happens again for so many reasons.
Oh
But
yeah.
like if it does, having a group or a team or whatever you want to call it who both want to handle those situations and are capable of handling those situations, I think would be like, you know, one of the best things for a community that size. Like, because
Mm.
ultimately, the group of admins were effectively in their position because, they're longtime runners, they're very skilled at the games, and they generally make good leaderboard decisions. But, like, that's really the qualifications that we all had. We didn't have some sort of, training or, like, people skills. Like, I'm one of the most introverted people you'll meet, which is surprising because we've been talking this whole time, but like I don't like but it's like we don't have that sort of training, and maybe we should, maybe, or maybe we're just not fit for that kind of decision. But it's one of those things that it's like a process has never been put in place for it. So it was really uncharted territory. Like we didn't know
Mhm.
what we were doing or how it was supposed to be handled.
And it had
And
never happened before to anyone.
exactly. Yeah.
It's not like you could look back and be like, well, this is what Ocarina of Time did when Scoozy Boozy, he did all that to the busload of deaf children. It's like, no, there was no prior examples. There was
Right.
just what you guys could do. I will say, what we ended up implementing in the Speed Docs Discord, and it actually worked, was we appointed 2 mods that have no mod power.
Okay.
And we gave them we found 2 people who, were not biased towards us, that would make rulings against me and CC, the other co-founder of Speed Docs. And we're like, okay, if anyone has anything that they want to say, if someone is making you feel uncomfortable, if something happened in this Discord or outside of this Discord and you want to tell someone about it, but you don't feel comfortable going to a moderator and you don't feel comfortable coming to me or CC, these are people who are dedicated to help you. They will find you we gave them all the resources that they could possibly need, and we said they have power to kick us from the server. So like if it's one of us, don't be afraid. We want to fix it. And it actually worked. Someone went to them and told them a problem. We handled it, and that person the person got removed from the Discord. And it was exactly what you're saying. Maybe not an HR department actually. But it's a good idea. I think people should have that. As a marathon, we were worried, at first it was like, why do we even need this? This seems like something we're going to make that has no purpose. Then we needed it and we didn't have one. And then the second time we had it and we had it in place and it worked perfectly and we staved off a huge problem. So it's things like that. It's like we had the gift of preparation and people being like, you should have something like this in place in case this happens again. And so we're set up for the future now, but gosh, it would have been nice to have then. It's a really good idea. We call them ombudsman just because I like the word, but you can call them basically anything, and they're just mods that are there to help people. Maybe they're not the most tech savvy, or they're not gonna watch they're not Discord creatures, but they are, they have a strong moral compass, and they have their good listeners, or they're good at giving advice, or they can explain calmly and they can understand what people are saying, even if they're not calmly saying it. So things like that. It's something that was really good to add to the Discord. And if you're listening and you manage a community of any size, I recommend having at least one. You might be surprised that someone in your Discord is uncomfortable and they just don't feel comfortable telling you.
Yeah, that's certainly like we said, especially for the main series Pokemon games, like we all have new community Discords that we're in the process of setting up, new moderation teams, stuff like that. I think this is an idea I'm definitely going to bring forward because this sounds basically, it's not, there's never going to be a perfect solution, but this sounds pretty close to perfect.
Yeah, it worked really well, honestly, and it's just about, you have to do a little more screening to find the right people, but they also need the ability to remove someone that's high up on the food chain, right? Otherwise it doesn't work. So it's a hard balance to find, but they are out there. And the same things that don't make them a qualified moderator for managing a Discord that gets 2,000 messages a day, it's the exact thing that makes them perfect for one-on-one conversation.
Right.
The micro stuff. So, was there anything else that you wanted to talk about that I didn't ask you?
No, I can't really think of anything.
All right, let's go to the outro.
All right.
Well, thank you so much, Eddaket, for being a guest. You are welcome back anytime. This was truly a pleasure. I do want to plug you. We're going to take a pause for the cause. If you want to follow our guest today, you can follow him on Twitch. That's twitch.tv/eddaket. That's E-D as in David, D as in David, A, K as in Kilo, E, T as in Thomas. That's eddaket, EDDAKET. Remember that spelling because you can also follow him on Twitter. That's @eddaket, spelled the same way. In YouTube, our guest has made it easy for us. It's also it's youtube.com/user/eddaket, spelled the same way. So, thank you so much for being on the show. We really appreciate it. Thank you everyone out there that's been listening every week, been giving us your feedback and leaving your comments. Continue to share the show with your friends. Continue to leave your feedback and continue to listen. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Eddaket, for being on the show. And we will see you next time, everybody. Take care.